Hello, whoever's here.
Am I in?
I can hear you still, yes.
Yes.
It's just occurred to me that I should probably put our logo at the beginning of this slideshow. It's not like we haven't done like 18 episodes, and I should have some sort of idea of what I'm doing.
This is the second one we've ever done live?
The second live one, yes.
All right.
It's very exciting. All right. So it's 2:35. I'm going to say that we can do our little opening spiel and get things going for people who have joined us. Are you ready, Mr. Fort?
Born ready.
All righty. Now let's see if I can get through this. I actually wrote out my introduction this time because I never remember who I am. So. Hello, and welcome to Modern Metamorphoses, a podcast where we look at comics, prose, movies, TV shows, and other media involving the physical and/or mental alteration of its characters or other metahuman themes. Striving to be insightful, respectful, and inclusive, while this series does at times discuss adult material, this podcast itself is all access. Join us now as we look at how metamorphoses in media have evolved into the modern era. I am your co-host, Dan Standing, Transformation Comics and Prose creator.
And I'm Alex Fort, fantasy fetish researcher and scholar.
And today we are going to be taking a look at the 1993 remake of Attack of the 50-Foot Woman.
Incredibly fitting.
Yes. And some of you may have tuned in yesterday when we did a riffing session. Pretorius and I riffed the original 1950s Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. And so I went into this remake having watched the original more times than any human being should have, I think. And the differences and relation between the remake and the original are very fresh in my head.
Well, that's good, because I haven't seen the original.
I did love it, Predators. Yes, I do love the original in its way. Before we get to talking about the plot and going through our cause, process, and impact that we like to explore, I've got this little presentation up here to just sort of explore a little bit of who's in the film, like to explore the who's responsible for the movie, and I'm going to start with its director, Christopher Guest. So some people might be familiar with Christopher Guest. He's done a lot of things in a long career. Some of you may know him as Jamie Lee Curtis's husband.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes. Some of you may know him as the director of movies such as Waiting for Guffman, Best in Show, and A Mighty Wind. And also he's in a few of them. This is Christopher Guest from Best in Show. He is also, some of you may know him as the Six-Fingered Man from The Princess Bride.
That's where I know him.
It's where I first met him. But going back even further, which is most interesting to me, is he is also one of the members of Spinal Tap. So Christopher Guest has had a long and varied career before this film. This actually predates Waiting for Guffman and his other films that most people are more familiar with. That star like Eugene Levy and that group. Next up, we have a main character of the film, played by Daryl Hannah. And I just wanted to grab a couple choice screenshots showing some of the size work in the film with Daryl Hannah. Some of you may know Daryl Hannah from such films as Splash, where she plays the mermaid. Also, most recently famous for having her butt censored on Disney Plus
With the shaggy carpet.
Yes, the shaggy carpet hair. She is also one of her more recent roles was in Kill Bill. Daryl Hannah was also in Kill Bill, and one of the great performances from that film, in my opinion. So
I got familiar with her from Sense8, that Netflix show. It's a good one. She's really good in that.
I haven't watched Sense8 yet. I didn't know she was in that. I'm gonna have to check it out.
That's a Wachowski siblings thing. It's
yes.
really good.
I've been intrigued by it, but I haven't had a chance to check it out yet. Another person who is in Attack of the 50-Foot Woman's remake is Mr. William Windham. Many of you may not know William Windham from this photo, but if you are of a certain age, you may know him better as Seth, the doctor from Murder, She Wrote. There he is with Jessica Fletcher. Another individual in the cast here is, I believe this is Paul Benedict. Yes, Paul Benedict, who is a face that most people probably would recognize from things, but most specifically, he is the judge in the Addams Family movie, who gets all the golf balls sent into his house from Gomez. And then we have also in this film, playing Honey, is Christy Conaway. She plays the Honey character in the remake, and I know her best as the Ice Princess from Batman Returns. And then the last of my actors that I wanted to pull to talk about real quick is Richard Edson here. Richard Edson, you may, some people may know as the gentleman who re-borrows the car that Ferris Bueller already borrowed in Ferris Bueller's Day Off.
I thought you looked familiar.
Or my much preferred role of his as one of the two Koopa cousins from Super Mario Brothers the movie. One of my favorite films.
Is that going to be on our list to watch and talk about? Because I forgot that movie existed.
At some point it will. We certainly the Goomba transformations. There's certainly transformations in Super Mario Brothers that would qualify it for the podcast. So, maybe. But I love the movie and would talk about it regardless if allowed. So we're not going to let that happen today.
Okay.
And then the copy that we've watched is my archived version of my DVD copy of Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. And this is the cover here. So that's that. Now I've skipped a few actors. I'm going to stop sharing so we can get ourselves in high definition here. I've skipped a few actors. Of course, we have one of the other Baldwins playing Harry Archer.
One of the lesser Baldwins.
One of the lesser Baldwins. Who does a great, Daniel Baldwin does a great, guy you just want to see squished by a giant woman character. He's pretty much a slime ball. But that's it. Did I miss anyone that you wanted to call out and mention there, Mr. Fort?
Nope, just the Baldwin. I like the joke about lesser Baldwins much in the same way I like lesser Wahlbergs. There are 16 of them. There are 3 that we know.
Perfect. So we're going to get into recapping the plot here, which is weird in the way this movie sets itself up. We'll get to that in a second. How we like to process through the topics that we tackle here on Modern Metamorphoses is by focusing on 3 key items in a transformation story. The cause, the process, and the impact. Now, cause is going to be both what it is, the MacGuffin, magic, science, whatever that causes the transformation, but also why. Why did our transformed person encounter this, or what was the reason behind it? Process is pretty straightforward. It's just what we get to see or experience of that transformation, and then the impact is how does that affect the character. So that's how we kind of guide ourselves through this. And as we get into the start of Attack of the 50-Foot Woman remake, is there anything about the beginning of it that you found interesting, Mr. Ford?
In all honesty, I was just kind of watching it, and I feel like I just glazed it. Like it didn't really like strike me super hard. I feel like because I just was running off of all the things we'd watched before, and this kind of just did. Like
It
I can't. How does it start?
well, it starts with a lot of driving in the desert again, just like the original. We have a bus driving through the desert, and it's like it's a framing device of a tour guide introducing a group of people who are at the Nancy Archer Memorial Building who are going to see an educational film about the story of the attack of the 50-foot woman, who then, while watching the film, we're presented by one of the scientists who then do a flashback, which is in a narrated therapy session that Nancy Archer is doing.
That's okay. Yep. That my brain did not keep any of that.
No, I'm just watching it and I'm like, okay, so they're at a memorial. What is that? It's like this Matryoshka doll of like, just like, I feel like the screenwriter was like, how do I start the remake of the attack of the 50-foot woman? Like, what, how do I get this story going? They gives it like 4 beginnings.
Yeah, what was that? There was that movie where like they had like a flashback, and then in the flashback they had a flashback.
Well,
and then like
Deadpool calls itself out on that, I think. But
yeah, but there's one that like did it literally.
Yeah.
And like you're just sitting there like, okay, so what layer are we in? It felt like Inception.
Yeah.
But it was the very beginning.
And it's weird is, and I'll spoil the end of the movie, we never come back to any of these like setups. Like the movie just ends inexplicably in a certain fashion, but it never returns to any of this. We don't fall back up the rabbit hole of story exposition to the Memorial Center of Nancy Archer.
I think people forget the climb back out of the holes they dig.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, we get started. There's some little nods here and there to stuff in the original, like the scientist who's Paul Benedict's character talks about this supersonic age, and we've got Nancy's pendant in this is really just like a piece of jewelry. It's not the world's most famous diamond as it is in the original.
Yeah, I haven't seen the original, so like this is all news that they're doing callbacks. I'm glad they are.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like that sounds like a very 1950s thing of like she has the most valuable diamond around her necklace.
Mm-hmm. And
it's like that's not important. She's just big.
Right. And we want to get to the big. And I will say this is like a minor complaint that I have is that so in the original 1950s Attack of the 50-foot woman, we don't get to the actual 50-foot woman, depending upon your scale, until pretty much the last 10 to 15 minutes of the film, and that's maybe 50 so minutes in. In this movie, we do get her at the 45-minute mark, but the original also has this other bald giant alien that we at least see intermittently until then. So there is some giant man stuff going on in the original to kind of get you through to what everybody's here for. But in this, we don't see any of the aliens until the very, very end. So it is faster to get to the giant woman, but it's 45 minutes of character building, basically, character development.
Yep, they really have to establish in stone why we hate this person, want this person to become powerful, and just what happens.
Yeah.
Like it felt like too much.
It's weird because at least in this version, I do feel like every character is kind of a person. Like even Harry has some dimension to him. Like he's more of an idiot who's greedy than the Harry in the other film, which was kind of just a sleazeball. And Honey is a character whom back and forth as I was watching, I was like, oh, Honey's really cool. And then it's like, oh no, you're really going to shotgun this woman. You're kind of the dick also, but I'm also kind of on your side. Yeah. Like they managed to make the characters a little bit more complex, for better or for worse. And
I feel like that's the cost, isn't it? Like the balance of time, right? There's the chart of how much you want to dig into people and how much you want the movie to happen.
Yeah. And it's good that like, so let me say this. There's a Paula Poundstone joke where she says that Daryl Hannah is great whenever she's not playing a human being. And because she's great in Splash, she's great in, I think it's Clan of the Cave Bear. And it's interesting. Like I appreciate what they're trying to do with Nancy in the beginning of the movie, where it's clearly she's really put upon, and this has been her entire life. Her father has been domineering, and so she's kind of quiet and reserved. But I just get really frustrated watching her really fast. And then when she becomes 50 feet tall, then it's like, oh, okay, you're really like
much more compelling,
emoting and compelling. And I realize that's part of the character growth. But I don't know. There's something about Nancy in the original film, who is a recovering alcoholic, has been basically gaslighted by her husband, and is really more strongly like fighting back. Like she's much more active in pushing back against the people she thinks are wronging her than Daryl Hannah's Nancy is at the beginning of this movie. Two things that I want to point out: there are two characters that are gender changed in this film in regards to the original. Dr. Cushing, who is a guy in the original movie, is a woman played by Frances Fisher in this one. And also, my favorite character from the original, Deputy Charlie, is also changed to a young woman in this movie. And I wasn't certain how I felt about Charlie in this film at the beginning, but by the end of the movie, I was pretty pro Charlie. I think the character grows on me in this. There's a few things. Christopher Guest, I think, was kind of cutting his comedy chops with this director's review, because there are certainly things that I saw and felt were very funny little moments. My favorite moment is when Nancy is speaking with a local store owner, a shop owner, who's closing up because her Nancy's father, she's an orphan in the original, but her father's alive in this one. Her father's like putting the town out of business to like drum up his own like super center.
Right.
And the guy,
weird foreshadowing to Walmart, huh?
Yeah, a little bit. And the guy's like, all right, well, it's been nice talking to you, Nancy. I got to go tend the till. And he goes back into the store, which has a sorry, we're closed like sign on it. But
that feels like a Spinal Tap joke.
Yeah. There's little things like that there are background gags. Like did you note the movies at the drive-in theater?
I did not.
Some of them are like Dead Tired and Night of the Car Wash Girls, but then other times it's like The Adventures of Milo and Otis. And then I think Yentl is one of the films paired up on it at one point. And in a weird meta version, a meta moment in the film at the very end, when Nancy's like on the hunt for Harry, she comes to the drive-in theater and they're watching the 1950s Attack of the 50-Foot Woman. Like it's the scene where she kills Honey in the original. Yeah. So.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's weird things like that, but.
If nothing else, Christopher Guest is clever.
Yeah.
I feel like he's absolutely got some good not credentials. He's got good grasp of like what he wanted out of this.
Yes.
Yeah.
I feel like the tone is about right. What do you think about that? And like how the film's tone is, not necessarily the pacing, but the tone.
So the tone of it, I feel like it nails the tone of being like in knowing what it is and what it's about and what it's from, but also putting it into like the mid 90s kind of like starting to get a little dark feel of things, where it's like we want this to be silly, but we also want it to feel right, because you got stuff like the Power Rangers movies which don't feel real at all. The dialogue doesn't seem like it's written by real people for real people. Like these are not how teens talk. The conflict is entirely out of this world. And this one, like there's alien involvement. There's like actual like someone getting big, real big, and it feels like it's taken just seriously enough to like give it credit, but not seriously enough to where you're like sitting in the chair just like, I get it.
Right.
Like it's not like the Matrix, right? Where the Matrix takes it very seriously and you like get immersed because it is a serious thing. This one like kind of slips a joke into you. You're like, yeah, it's a movie. I know. It's great. It's good. I like it. Like the humor is like, it's the balance between like absurd and smart, right? There's like you can have like all absurd, all smart, and otherwise it's a balance.
Mm-hmm.
And this like is right in the middle.
Yeah, I do feel like you could probably, as far as it's like self-awareness of Attack of the Woman's remakes, self-awareness is that we have to remember we're 3 years away from Scream.
Oh,
So I do every once in a while get a touch of like the film knows its tropes a little bit.
yeah,
It doesn't excuse it for taking 45 minutes to get to, the
point.
the point. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of filler in there. Like we learn at one point, just I mean, the plot of the film is put upon woman gets big because aliens and takes the
Does
power
big
to
things.
herself, does big things, and like finally takes her power. And in this film there are other characters that kind of come along with her on that ride. So it's not much to really recap the plot so much as it is to be like, well, there's one scene. So in this film, her husband is cheating on her with a woman named Honey, and there's a scene later where you find out that I guess maybe Nancy's dad also had a thing with Honey at one point. Like he talks about like paying for her nose job. Like,
Yeah,
it's very. Go ahead.
I was gonna say, that's kind of snuck in. Like, I just didn't think anything of it because it's like, hey, he seems like a sleazy guy who would do lots of things for pretty women in the hope of getting something. But also at the same time, when you put it like that, yeah, maybe.
Yeah. So but that scene could be taken out and not affect any of the rest of the movie. Like the fact that she knows Nancy's Honey knows Nancy's dad, and at some point they had some sort of history itself doesn't matter. Like when she blackmails him at the end of the film, it's clearly because of stuff that Harry has told her while they're lovemaking. And so like that's a good, I don't know, 7 minutes that we could have cut out to, just kind of move us along.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I feel like, this would be edited much more differently now.
Yeah.
It might be a little more concise. Or they would have spent a lot more time focusing on like the cause and less on the impact.
Exactly. So I think we can fast forward a little bit to what everybody comes to Attack of the 50-Foot Woman for. And so, Nancy and Harry, and Nancy sees a spaceship. It shoots her locket for some reason, which is never really given a reason why later on.
It's an easy target.
Maybe it's probably in the original. The giant is wants her diamond because it powers his spaceship, but it doesn't make it's a pointless reference in this case.
Right.
So she encounters aliens. She comes back, and she becomes upset at one point, and we have our process, which pretty good. It's pretty good.
Yeah. I remember when I first saw this movie, it was like 2001. It was like on HBO. They were just doing the thing where they ran it every day because they just got the rights to it. And like I feel like no matter what happened, every single time I turned on the TV, that was the part that was playing. It was always just like, yeah, she's like in an office, right?
Yes.
Someone.
Well, she's in the
and like
she's in the living room, and she's seated in this big like velvet red chair. And first her wedding ring, her finger starts to expand, and the wedding ring snaps off. And
which is terrifying in and of itself, right? Like already, like I know how hard it is when a ring doesn't fit.
Yeah, I mean, I'm wearing a rubber one because my 10 years of marriage fattened me up.
But like a solid gold ring, it's not an easy thing to break.
No, that was some pressure on that finger.
Unless they forgot to unanneal it, and that's what are you doing? But yeah, like the ring pops and like the shoes pop, and like it seems like that was one of the structural frameworks by which I feel like every single growth scene after that is made.
It does seem, if it's not the reference, it's certainly the one that brings everything together, because you have the chest popping out, you have the buttons ripping, you have the clothing pulling back.
Yeah.
And what is now? I think like IMDb rates this as a rated R, and I am not entirely sure why, because it is the case. It is that she's wearing the Incredible Hulk's clothing essentially or She-Hulk's clothing, I guess you could say, because she's becomes big enough that she's smashed through the ceiling, but still like there's stuff stretched.
Modest.
Yeah, modest. The rule of modesty has prevailed.
Yeah,
and that's fine. It's still a great. You can have a really great growth scene without nudity if you make it make sense. Like,
yeah, because in the 50-foot cheerleader, there's the growth scene, and then she's naked,
right? And
she still fits in the room.
Yeah, and same for even like if we look at Village of the Giants, like that is a very simple like dolly truck almost like back projection screen rear projection. Thank you. Of the camera going upwards and the person going with it, and then their clothing literally just being pulled back off of them, which is very effective. But we have people shouting Harry in the chat, and I just want to acknowledge it. Thank you, Astra. Thank you, Brad. Because that is one of the things that survived to the remake, is that there are multiple times where she's running around screaming for Harry, which was an appreciated callback. But anyway,
I liked that bit. She's always yelling for him. Some Heavy Rain vibes.
Oh no. I don't need to think about Heavy Rain. But yeah, so the process is pretty good. It's the weird clothing still fits despite a growth that should have either shattered it or basically asphyxiated the person within it. But
right,
yeah, it's pretty good.
I love the modesty that happens when you're like, if you think about the parts that get covered up on people, it's not the parts that there's a lot of room anyway. Like your hips, buttocks, like area gets bigger than your shins do. Like there's more to it. Like if you look at how much extra space you have in your pants, you have more space near your ankles than you do near your belt.
Right.
If you look at like when you're wearing a shirt, it's always tight under the pits. Like in sleeves, right? The sleeves, arms, you got baggage here. I don't have a lot of baggage here,
right?
Especially with like my t-shirt, because it's a uniform shape, and like people tend to be shaped inwards, and so you would think if there's going to be any fabric left, it's going to be around the waist, and it's going to be around the ankles.
Yeah,
and that's not what happens. Because it's not sexy.
It would be super funny though to see somebody who's just going through a growth spurt and all they have are like cuffs and ankles, like everything else is just immediately shattered. But yeah, everything that always remains is the stuff that's always designed to be the tightest to them already.
Yep, and it's because there's just something I feel like in a lot of Western culture's brain is just like the more you compress the secondary sexual aspects, the more the bigger they look. It's like that's why lingerie does push-ups. And so what if we just did a push-up but with like tattered clothes? Boom, double sexy. But that's not how it works.
It's not how it works. So again, it's okay to be modest in your transformation. Just make it make sense.
Yep.
So anyway, so Nancy expands and grows and becomes probably 50 feet. She's certainly taller in the remake than, just like Godzilla, she's taller in the 90s movies than she is in the 50s movies.
Yeah, actually, I forgot how big they made Godzilla in the 90s Matthew Broderick movie, because I forgot about that movie too.
Well, even the Japanese Godzilla movies, Tokyo had, so much, the skyscrapers were so much bigger in Tokyo. If you had 1950s Godzilla walking through it, it'd just be like, oh man, that's big. Like
that's a big one.
That's a big one. I don't know if I can destroy that one. That one might hurt.
I might try.
I'm definitely gonna try. Godzilla's a trier. He definitely
Godzilla's no quitter.
He gives it his all. Nancy's not a quitter either. To transition, she her embrace of her power at her size comes wonderfully quick. Because her father, we've seen her father early on has been like basically coercing her into signing documents to kind of move money around. My guess is that because her mother was the moneyed one, and when she died, and my presumption is she left all the money to her daughter. So her father's basically coercing her into what he needs.
Right.
And he brings her this, to us, contract, and she's like looking through it like I
can't read any of these tiny little papers.
Yeah. And then eventually like throws it back at him, and it's like she's like, bring it back to me, when it's a billboard, paint it on a billboard if you have to. Like I am reading these.
Right. I mean, that's a smart thing, is just don't sign a contract you haven't read. And if it's this, was this a contract for ants?
Yeah. And so we see her along with Dr. Cushing is her psychologist or psychiatrist, and she's kind of talking to her more through it and becoming just a stronger character. And she talks about like the old Nancy is still like somewhere in my brain, apologizing for everything, but she's becoming quieter and quieter, and
don't need her. The big thing that I know is that a lot of times, like, we have a lot of posts going around that just kind of like, next time you spot like some kind of like male passive aggression violence or whatever, you need to speak out in that conference room. And it really ignores the fact that women are quiet in these positions because they are threatened, right? It's like the consequences of speaking out against a male superior can be life threatening, can ruin everything. And so like being empowered is not about, speaking forward. It's about actually having power. And in this whole society, you can't do that because, right. I live like in an at-will state. So like, if a girl were to talk up to her boss and be like, no, I'm not doing that, that's against the law, the boss can just fire her. And so like, it doesn't mean anything. But if you're 50 feet tall, you suddenly have the power to speak up and get the things you want. Because what are they going to do? Right. There's a whole completely different dynamic of like, she kept quiet because it's what kept her safe. It's what kept her alive. It kept her, from disappearing in the middle of the night. And then suddenly there's a thing that's been forged that she, didn't sign, but she can't prove it. She's dead in the desert. Like now that that's completely different. And so why would she need the quiet part? She can be her finally.
Right. And that's what I like about what we see with Nancy during this, is that it, she still has this fascination with Harry, but her size she's not using her size purely to get Harry. She's using her size now to manifest who she would be if she, did not have her father and husband and all of those people, like as you said, like they are threats to her existence. And that's a thing that is subconsciously in there. Like she goes to she wants to smash Harry's car for cheating on her earlier on in the film, and she puts the rock down. Now she's entirely, I feel like, within her rights to smash Harry's car for cheating on her at the hotel with Honey.
I mean, she's perfectly within her rights to smash Harry in with a rock.
Right, but her Harry is desperate to like lock her up in a psychiatric ward the moment he can. Her father is really only keeping her around for a signature and for fewer questions. He's even got the sheriff under his thumb later on. Or you see that he's like, "There's not going to be any paperwork about this, right?" And you're like, "No,
doesn't have to be."
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. Like it's once she elevates herself from the risk of any of that, I do enjoy more that we see her being who she wants to be.
Yeah, as a film of female empowerment, this one definitely covers that.
Yeah, and we see that also. Like Honey is also characterized a bit better. Again, it's sad. It's upsetting that every once in a while she's cool with murder, but she, you understand a lot better, like the situation that she's been put in by all these other powerful male characters in the town, and once Nancy basically fractures their hold on that power, Honey takes that opportunity to gain her empowerment with what she knows,
because she has a lot of power being who she is and what she's done. Like it's astounding how it comes in different ways, in different forms. but ultimately it just bad people get what's coming because people have the power over them now.
Right. Let's pause a moment and talk about the effects of Nancy and her gigantism.
There are a few.
Yeah, we have a number of scenes. Unlike in the first film, where she's a giant for about 10 minutes and smashes part of a town, and that's pretty much it. We see Nancy inside the barn. She crawls out of the barn. She's in a full-size swimming pool at one point, giving herself a bath.
Right. Like the physical impacts are pretty clear cut. Adjusting to life where you're, about 11 times bigger than the average person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like the one point where she's got like the tire from like a tractor, like the rear tire of a tractor, and she's just swinging it around her finger like very casually, like
it's a toy.
Like it's a toy. Like there's some great perspective showing like her size. Like when she has dinner with Harry later on, he has to sit at a table on top of a delivery van, and she has a literal like chemical barrel full of what she says is wine bought on bulk.
50-gallon drum.
Exactly. So there's some great little details in that, and even what she's wearing, it looks like she's sewing at one point something together out of military camouflage parachute material. And I'm not sure what she's sewing it with, but it's almost like a black like garden hose that she's using to stitch it all together. Like like Help, I Shrunk My Teacher, there's a shocking amount of detail paid to like the material, how that material would look, because obviously Daryl Hannah is not really 50 feet, but how you would make something for her that looks like it's made out of things that would be scaled to her. It's well done, in my opinion.
And I do think they put a lot of thought into it, and it shows that I feel like they just all sat in a room and they had like a good creative like brainstorming session of like, so if someone were to be 50 feet tall, what material would be the best to dress them in? It's like tent fabric. Near the military grade. Like parachutes. For like the tanks and stuff. We could use that. They probably have a lot of that. Do they have like cording? Cording, that could do the work. Ropes could be thread. Let's do that.
There's also a great gag that I feel never gets followed up on, is that after Nancy grows, Honey is in the nail salon and she sees a giant Revlon truck drive by, and then a few other things that are like fashion related drive by. And like I really wanted to see that, like someone is like emptying like 1,000 little like nail polish things onto one of Nancy's fingers to help her like put on nail polish for like
get like one of the rolling paints.
Something like they even do that a little bit in Attack of the 50-Foot Cheerleader. But it's this great, like many things in this film, there's like great moments and gags that just never come back. Like the film is filled with moments that really just never have a greater impact on anything else. It's just almost there to fill time, or just because
they wanted to see it. They wanted to see it. That's what it was. Because it's sometimes they put it in there to fill time, but very rarely do I see people like with like a big budget struggling to fill time. A lot of times I have to cut stuff out. So one, I wonder what we're missing, and two, the things they kept in there is because they wanted to see it. Either an executive producer wanted to see it, an editor wanted to see it, director wanted to see it, or they thought that we wanted to see it. And so, it's kind of thing that is absolutely a combination of the three.
Yeah, probably. We're getting to our 15-minute warning here, so I'm gonna move a little bit along because
the other part of the impact, the narrative impact, because the physical impact is easy to talk about. We spent 10-15 minutes talking about that.
And even the doctor, like the Paul Benedict's doctor, shows up at the film later on, and he's like, the human body was not meant to like be that big. Like she's got the blood pressure of a giraffe. And like Harry even tries to upset her to the point of like dying from a heart attack.
Yes.
At one point.
Like the amount of strain on her heart should be killing her. Yeah.
As if I may, Mr. Fort, we recently, these episodes haven't gone up, but we recently had started having some sequences called Fort Complains About Science. Was did you, in your medical knowledge, including maybe the details of, I don't know where they get oversized syringes, oversized needles in these movies so quickly, but like,
So you
did you
can go to
catch
a
anything?
hardware store and you can buy a tube and a piece of plastic fabricated to fit into that. The sharpness of the needle is going to be a little bit harder to machine, but it can be done. I don't know how well it could be done in the 90s, but the biggest complaint I will always have about a movie, this one had alien involvement, so a lot of things I can say don't matter. Like a lot of the science things that I complain about, if there are aliens or if there is magic, it doesn't matter. It's when they have a science-based one where like, Ant-Man, they have like Pym particles, which are basically magic, but they claim Pym particles are a thing and they like wear masks because are the size of oxygen molecules and all that. The big thing about this, pun not really intended, but now it is because I'm not a coward, is that I believe it's called the cube law, where like when something grows in 3 dimensions, its weight goes up by 8, as
Something
opposed to
like
like
that, yeah.
if they're like twice as big, they're 8 times as heavy,
Mm-hmm.
and so like the idea that she is now 11 times larger would mean that she is whatever 11 cubed is, because
I can't
just
do that
very,
math.
yeah, exactly, by virtue of density she should be collapsing under her own weight because the crystalline structure of our bones is not meant to take that. That's why
Right.
people with like marfins tend to fall apart, because they're like really tall and really thin, but their connective tissue isn't made for that. Ants can pull this stuff off, and they're really strong and dense. They're small, like they have the crystalline structure is good for that size. But if you make an
Mm-hmm.
ant that big, it will crush under its own weight.
Right.
And so, like, luckily, there's alien involvement. None of it matters. The
Mm-hmm.
oxygen is still very small, and I don't know if she has more blood cells to carry the oxygen or if she has bigger blood cells. But the point is, it shouldn't really work anyway because the lungs are efficient for our size. That's why we have them. And if you make them much bigger, they become less efficient.
Interesting.
Yeah, so like biologically, I can sweep a lot of stuff under the rug because it just works. But then again, apparently, if she's going to have a stroke because she's big and angry, then they're starting to tap into my district, and I don't like that. They're establishing some things that would have by proxy effects on other things,
Mm-hmm.
and that's a no-no. But luckily,
That's
they
like,
don't really step that far in, and they just let things just go.
mm-hmm.
They had to add some conflict of how do we kill her without it just being tanks and planes,
Right.
like a more of an intimate human element and like emotional abuse and stuff like that, and that's more compelling.
Mm.
But then they just didn't, like as with everything, they didn't go far enough to make it matter.
Yeah. No,
Yeah,
I would agree. Couple things that I want to make sure we touch on. Number one,
please.
Nancy is down for some size difference
Yeah,
love making.
yep.
Like,
She is well versed in the in the books and ideas and the imagination of what this
mhm.
entire con is about.
Yeah, no, Nancy goes to Harry and she's like, "Look, we can make this work." And Harry completely throwing away an opportunity because Nancy's like, "Who wouldn't be jealous of you? Like, come on." And I'm
Right.
like, "Yeah, like normal sized Daryl Hannah would, make pretty much anybody jealous of Harry." But Harry, I'm like, Harry's like, "Well, what am I supposed to do? Get a flashlight and a scuba suit? Like,
Harry.
how would this work?" And I'm like, "Harry, yes,
Harry.
absolutely."
You do whatever you want, my dude.
Yeah,
It's
like she's
fun. It's fucking
down. She's down for this.
fun.
Like,
Again, I think toxic masculinity removes a lot of the imagination from cowardly men.
yeah, yeah, and it is the character flaw of Harry's on many for many reasons.
Yeah, I
But
mean, like he's already cheating because of power. It's not because his wife's unattractive or not willing to do anything. It's he just
mhm,
wants to be able to do whatever he wants. And then suddenly it's like, hey, you want to do whatever you want? And he's like, I can't do whatever I want now. It's not what I want. And of
yeah,
course, she should just be like, well, I'm going to go have fun somewhere else with someone who's totes down, maybe 10 of them, because I have the real estate. Let's do it.
hmm yeah. Like, I'm a little upset. I like this movie. It's slow. It has a pacing problem. But
Yeah.
once we get to her, like once we get to the 45-minute mark and she's grown, and even the scenes at that point that don't have her in it, like we're not gonna have time to talk about the sheriff and the deputy and like their dynamic. I think they're actually really good characters that I enjoyed their scenes. But once we get to the 45-minute mark and everything gets going, I like this film a lot. And for anybody who's listening who was watching yesterday who was like, justice for Nancy or 50-foot rewrite because of how the original ends, we do get a different kind of weird ending in this one, but we definitely get a different and certainly more Nancy alive ending in this one, despite. And I love this line because it riffs off of one of my favorite lines from the original. It doesn't feel right firing an air-to-ground missile at a woman.
Yeah,
oh.
No, yeah.
Yeah, it's the I can't shoot a lady line. Thank you, Predatorius, from the first one. Before yes. I don't care if this pushes us. They can't push us over, but I don't care where this derails us. Cigarettes and cigars and Nancy plucking them out of people's mouths to assert her dominance. Thoughts? Did you catch that?
I didn't, and I immediately forgot about it.
Right.
Like you brought it up. I was like, oh yeah, she did do that. That's such like on the list of things you can do to be an asshole in a movie, it's just under eating an apple.
Yeah. But it was so fun for me to watch this like literal like a cigar is just a cigar like thing where it's like the dad is smoking the cigarettes and like Harry's got the cigarette, and each time Nancy each time Honey wants to assert her authority, she literally rips the emitting phallic object right out of their mouths and like throws it away. And I'm like, you go, girl, you go.
There's something just so dickish about like people who like smoke like in general, like inside, especially like it's like, oh, do you smoke? No. Well, do you mind if I smoke? Naturally.
Yeah, right.
Like to like put that much like, you know what? I need to be in this space so intensely. I need an aura of me self-indulging, and and he was like, you can stop that now. We're done.
But the film wraps up with the National Guard showing up in helicopters and attacking her because of the slip of the tongue, and she gets electrocuted. And as she's supposedly laying there dead with Harry in his hand, and some of the funniest Daniel Baldwin like looking around when you close up to her holding him scenes, the aliens show up and beam her back up into their ship and just fly away with Nancy.
Yeah, I like that one. That one sat a little bit better of just because it leaves a whole like, so did she prove her worth, or was she an experiment? Did it work? Like,
right.
What, we don't know the internal process. It's not like I'm here for the diamond for my spaceship.
Right. It's not as direct as that. And we see there's two giant twin female aliens, I presume, the way they're presenting, that are with her in the spaceship, who never talk. We never get any explanation as to, why they've chosen her, why they've taken her, or why they've got three normal-sized men in a tiny room that they are conditioning. But
I always assumed that they were other women that had a very similar fate. I always assumed that they much like the Dread Pirate Roberts, the original aliens are gone, but like some woman got turned into a 50-foot woman to escape some kind of oppression, and then like they brought her on, like, hey, you did your best, let's bring you on here, and then like they find another person on Earth and they do that, and they would the cycle continues, and so it's like, yes, you have surpassed a trial. Come join our commune of giant women, and so we can be powerful together.
By that logic, I like it. I like that a lot. By that logic, you could almost say that that's possible, that because everybody complained about the ending of the original. What if the original, which we know at least exists in film form in this movie because we see it at the drive-in. What if the film that's playing at the drive-in is a documentary on what actually happened in the 1959 one, which is part of this continuity, and that Nancy survived, and maybe found the way of taking that satellite, aka spaceship, from that alien, and she is actually the originator of this. That is how this has happened. That maybe that's Nancy's happy ending. That she, 59 Nancy's happy ending, where she has now started this cycle of saving other women and empowering them with the technology from space.
Yeah, maybe that could be cool.
Maybe
That's the one thing I like about it. It's like it's never said, so we can fill it in our own fiction, and no one can say that we're wrong unless Christopher Guest wants to tell us we're wrong. Which I would gladly talk to Christopher Guest.
Oh yeah, no, if Christopher Guest wants to come find me and tell me I'm wrong, I will totally accept that.
He can reach out to us at modmetapodcast@gmail.com.
Hey, it's worked before. That's how we ended up interviewing Rolf Konevsky. Yeah, Christopher Guest, if you end up listening to this and think that we've gotten anything wrong, please feel free to come on our podcast. We'll gladly talk with you about it.
I'll talk to almost anyone.
In our last few minutes, because I do want to give an opportunity for, I don't know, one question at this point. My recommendation is if you've got a way of watching the film, skip to the 45-minute mark. You've got an idea pretty well already of these characters, even from like maybe the 40-minute mark. You'll know all you need to know about all the characters by the time those 5 minutes get you to the good part, and then enjoy a pretty decent, giantess film and effects at that point.
Yeah, if you're in it for the effects, you found a good movie. You just have to cut halfway. I feel like narratively, it's a lot like There Will Be Blood, where all you need is like the first half hour for establishing characters, and then you watch the last like half hour to really, really get the impact, and the rest is just filler. Mm-hmm. Like I like There Will Be Blood, but I didn't need the middle. I just needed like who are these people, and then the good part, the part that won the awards. And so for this one, it's like, let's establish who these people are, and then the rest. Let's just get to the rest.
Get to the rest. So, with that, I think that's our recommendation for it. We've left 4 minutes of our time. Does anybody want to share in the chat there any questions? But Astor, we love you, by the way. Nobody is saying that you're not respecting anybody's space.
Which Nancy would win in a fight?
Which Nancy? Predatorius asks which Nancy would win in a fight. So I have to go 59 Nancy, and I know you've not seen the original.
Well, does 59 Nancy actually kick ass and take names?
She does more attacking in the 59 version than Daryl Hannah does. Daryl Hannah's very reactive when she's looking for Harry. She flicks a gun out of Honey's hands, but I feel like 59 Nancy has more of that, like, Harry!
Ah, gotcha. Because she's a ghost.
Yeah, well, effects notwithstanding.
No one ever said that you couldn't punch a ghost if you got alien powers. No one ever said that.
Yeah, that's true. Ghost versus
Not above
aliens.
Punching a ghost. But
Ghost versus Aliens, the new DreamWorks film coming out.
Oh, yeah. But if it comes down to like whoever has, it's not the size of the dog in the fight. Size of fighting the dog. And apparently 59 Nancy is ready to throw down, and 90, which year?
93. Now, don't get me wrong. I think 93 Nancy would not be a pushover. I think she's certainly like ready. Like, I think she tries to punch a helicopter at one point. I'm not entirely sure about her contact with it, but
if it comes down to like the Godzilla versus King Kong of the two, I definitely think like 93 would definitely be more of like the Godzilla, like slow to anger but good to righteous fighting. Or is that the King Kong one? I don't know which one starts the fight. I just saw a trailer or like Godzilla hit like an aircraft carrier and then they started fighting for some reason.
I have theories about Godzilla vs. Kong, which I'm totally saying and could not be more excited for. The monster, the Kong Skull Island, and Godzilla King of the Monsters are two of my favorite giant monster movies. But I have thoughts on Kong versus Godzilla. Spoilers, so I'm not going to say anything. But
right, I'm just losing in the chat because we got all the Harrys.
Yeah, Harry.
Harry.
Yeah, there we go. Daryl Hannah definitely screams Harry a few times, which was great. I'm just going to look at my notes real quick and make sure I didn't miss
anything super pressing.
Anything pressing, yeah. No. Oh, then the old man with the donkey even made the remake, which I thought was interesting. But
Of all
means
the
nothing.
things to bring back.
Yeah, which means nothing to anybody who doesn't know how random the old man and the donkey is in the first one. But any other questions or thoughts that we can address in chat before we go?
With our last minutes.
Mm-hmm. Did I steamroll you on anything there, Mr. Fort? Was there any other thoughts that you had?
No, I got to speak my mind.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
this is one of the movies that like didn't upset me in any real particular way, but it also didn't it didn't shine on me and it didn't really upset me. It was just a movie, which is such a rarity. It just kind of like was. And I felt a little zen about it. Maybe it's I'm on new meds, so I'm like kind of zen about a lot of things, but it just kind of was. And that's why I feel like I forgot like how the beginning happened, because by that point I was mostly just like, when do we get to the part that I remember when she like her ring explodes and then she's like bathing in a pool and then like there's like some good awful like righteous vengeance against the patriarchy. When does that happen? And then by that point it was like half hour in and I was like, what happened? All right, yeah, they hate their dicks, got it.
Yeah,
and it just
they're awful.
Was. And so it's not a wish me luck.
No. But if you want to know what our thoughts are on Wish Me Luck, or A Girl in His Pocket, Help I Shrunk My Teacher, Mood Boobs, our talk with both J.R. Pars, who created Master PC, and also Rolf Koneski, who's the writer-director of Mood Boobs, you can listen to our other episodes of Modern Metamorphoses. They are on iTunes, they're on Stitcher, they're on Google Podcasts, they're on Amazon, they're literally everywhere. I've been a busy boy. And if you would like to send us more questions about this movie or any other movie, or recommend a movie, or thank you, and Sideroom says they're awesome, you can email us at modmetapodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you. We'd love to hear from anybody, really, but we'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, I love feedback. There's nothing quite as disappointing of just hearing, well, it's good. No, what can I do better? I want to be better. But also just differing opinions, so we can talk about them later. I can expand my worldview. Good stuff.
Right. Yeah, because if you're looking at the two of us and thinking to yourself, there are certainly more voices that can be brought to the table of transformation. We know and we agree, and we want your voices, and we wanna learn more and talk more with more people. So.
Absolutely.
And before I sign off, I just want to say, actually, if you subscribe, you're going to start hearing episodes that we did interviewing alongside Tatus, Rob Klasak, Sideroom. Like, we've got some great guests who have been big SizeCon players here, and we're looking to be doing guest spots with more once we get everything going in 2021. But yes. We're 2 minutes over, so I'm going to be responsible and just kind of wave here and say my goodbyes, and thank you all for tuning in and listening to this live recording of the Modern Metamorphoses podcast.
Yeah, thank you for being here. Thank you for having us. Thank you for listening. Thank you for enjoying, and I hope you guys have a good rest of your weekend.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks for coming. Love you all, and we'll see you on the flip side. I'm going to jump into my table real fast if anybody wants to chat before I have to go back to the baby. Have a good day, everybody.
Take care, Dan.
See you, Mr. Foot. The baby has meant some things have had to be rearranged so that I don't have to, run from a basement to take care of the baby.
That is nice.
Yes. So now I am live from my dining room. So welcome everyone who's come in so far. I see about 5. Oh, hey, Fred. How's it going?
Hey.
We are just going to give another moment or two, I think, for people to come and filter in from wherever they were before we start the live recording of the Modern Metamorphoses podcast. I'm going to stop shoving my forehead into the camera. I think that'll
No, get closer.
do us all better. Much closer. Yes. If
I'm
you
gonna
can't see
sip this drink real loud.
So the ASMR and ModMeta podcast hour. More forehead? Okay. If you can't see the grays of my eyebrows, then...
Yeah. I just realized like the last time people saw me, I may or may not have had hair.
It's a good question.
Yeah, because this is a recent development from like last year.
It's looking good though.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah.
I'm pleased. I wasn't expecting it to turn out well because the last time I had my hair cut short, I had lice, and so it just looked like I was sick.
Oh,
but the beard really makes it look better.
It's a counterbalance.
There's got to be hair somewhere.
Yeah.
And then got a jacket specifically to show off.
Nice.
Just peacocking it.
It's very nice. I'm wearing the same shirt that I've worn on all of my panels so far because I just take it off and put it here because I have enough laundry. Do not need any more laundry. So if anybody has been wondering why Dan looks like he's wearing the same thing for 3 days straight, it's fairly fresh. Yes, I have, but it's fairly fresh. So
I love the premise that like if you hadn't said anything, I would have just been like, oh, that just looks like any of your other shirts.
It is kind of my look. It is like they're all pretty much, this kind of check material collared shirt. This is my casual look.